Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. Here with me today, of course, is co-founder of The Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. So, Peter, we've been talking in recent days about how this war comes to an end in Ukraine, because the Western position is becoming completely implacable, and they're escalating militarily, sending more and more weapons that clearly can reach Russian territory. And they've even, James Cleverly, the UK Foreign Secretary, said that's fine. That Ukraine can use British weaponry to hit targets in Russia. So they're escalating militarily, but they're also escalating politically by issuing this arrest warrant for Putin through the ICC. And as we talked about it the other day, there are more charges coming. I mean, they're not going to stop with just simply abduction of children. They're going to go for genocide. That's next. They're also going to charge him with waging an aggressive war through a ad hoc tribunal. So essentially, that means the war against Russia cannot stop. I mean, it cannot stop until essentially
it's cosmic. It's a cosmic struggle, is what they've made it.
Exactly. Yeah. So until Putin is behind bars, and then pretty much until just about everybody in the Russian leadership, because they're not going to stop with Putin. Because Lavrov, they'll want him behind bars. I mean, it's going to be a clean sweep. So you escalated there, and the one joker in the pack that we've talked about is what happens if Donald Trump was the leading contender to take the GOP nomination. He's leading in the polls in a head-to-head matchup with Biden. So if Trump becomes president in January 2025, is there a chance that the war could come to an end? Because Trump said, I can get the job done in 24 hours. I mean, he repeats that, though he's never explained what it is that he's going to do within 24 hours to bring it to an end. And so apropos of that, we were watching earlier today a video with a discussion with John Mearsheimer, and Mearsheimer just dismissed the idea that Trump would make any real difference. He's saying that it'll be much the same as it was when Trump first became president. He was hampered right away by the deep state. They just wouldn't allow him to pursue the foreign policy that he promised to pursue. But more seriously, according to Mearsheimer, that there's nothing to negotiate. What's there to negotiate? I mean, because Russia's not going to surrender the territories that it's taken, and which is now incorporated within the Russian Federation. And Russia's not going to surrender on the issue of that Ukraine has to be a neutral state. Ukraine isn't going to give up on its claims on its territory. And NATO is there through to the bitter end. So there's really nothing to negotiate. It's going to have to be resolved militarily. So that's we are where we are in a very dangerous situation. So it looks kind of grim. Anyway, what did you think, Peter?
Well, Trump is one of the last great retail politicians. Okay, and the position he's taken on the conflict in Ukraine is brilliant for his primary bid. Okay, because there's enough rank and file of Republican voters that are very skeptical of all of this. And they actually very fondly remember Trump said he wouldn't get us into any new wars, and he didn't. Okay. Yeah. He's got a track record here. Yeah. Now, saying he can solve it in 24 hours, well, he's put himself into his own lane. He's standing alone, which is a brilliant political move. Okay. Right. But look what happened to DeSantis. He stumbled. Yeah. He stumbled. So, his view is not much different than, anyone else running against Trump right now. Trump stands alone. And it's more of a principled thing. No more foreign wars. Okay. Can Donald Trump solve it in 24 hours? Of course not. Okay. Of course not. So, but I think it sends to his base And it's a reminder of the establishment of who he is. Trump wants to reestablish his bona fides, okay? They blocked me, but I know they did, okay? Right. Russiagate and all of this here. So, but Mearsheimer is absolutely spot on correct. There is nothing to negotiate. Neither side has any common ground. Zero. Okay. Right. They don't even have a common ground to stop the killing. Okay. They're not even that, which that says a lot in itself. Right. So, Trump's position is retail politics in the primary. That's all it is. And I think you and I'd agree when he said that. It was like, well, there he goes again. That's vintage Trump. Okay. But like I said, his supporters said no more new wars, and he did that. Okay, and that's a point in his corner, and he's going to milk it for all it's worth.
Right. No, I agree. Now there is a way that Trump could end it.
Well, yeah, I know what you're going to say. Go ahead. Yeah,
all right, but is he could go to Zelensky and say, "That's it. Yep. We're cutting you off. You're on your own."
Then what would happen to Trump?
Exactly. And that's really the point. And that's, I think, what Mearsheimer was emphasizing, that there's just no way in the world that the U.S. military, political, intelligence establishment will allow this. Trump already has various issues, hanging over his head. I mean, he's got a number of legal problems that he's going to have to address. And the legal problems could multiply, so he knows all sorts of things are down the road. I mean, we know what happened during his first term. 2 impeachments, the whole bogus, fraudulent hoax of Russiagate, which derailed his presidency. We know now that, having abandoned Russiagate, abandoned Ukrainegate, they've got this new one, which is lawfare. How many legal criminal investigations can we launch against Trump to hamper him? And that's without doubt that they're going to do this. When he was on with Sean Hannity the other day, Hannity, of course, misunderstood Trump, because Hannity was under the impression that Trump is going to just issue some kind of a threat to Russia, that somehow, well, unless you withdraw from Ukraine, I'm going to bomb Moscow. Trump did not disabuse Hannity of this notion, but of course, this is totally idiotic. Trump is not a fool. He's not going to start threatening to bomb Moscow. Again, remember, Trump was actually quite a cautious person when it came to the use of force. I mean, he's a bit of a blowhard in interviews, but again, remember with Iran, when the Iranians hit the American barracks in Iraq, which hit American soldiers, he didn't retaliate. He could have retaliated. Everyone was expecting him to retaliate. He didn't do it. He wasn't prepared to start a war with Iran. So Hannity, Mark Levin, and these clowns, they can go on thinking, oh yeah, well, what we have to do is apparently threaten Putin and the war comes to an end. Trump isn't stupid enough to go down that path.
Well, we didn't allow each other to finish our thoughts here, so I'll do it for both of us. Yes, Trump could on January 21st, I guess, or 20th, 2025, say the jig's up, you're done. The next day, before the end of the day, articles of impeachment will be filed against him, and his good friend Lindsey Graham will be leading the pack. That's a very good point. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. That's exactly what will happen, and then he will be impeached and removed.
You're absolutely right, because when it comes to the Senate, the Republican senators are no great fans of Trump. I mean, Trump has his followers within the House GOP, and who knows how it could go there. But again, even among the House GOP, there are all sorts of people who'd be quite happy to vote to remove. We have to assume every single Democrat in the House will vote to impeach. Every single one.
It's the new Bolshevik party. Okay.
Exactly. So all they need to do is pick off a dozen or so Republicans to join them, and that shouldn't be too hard. And then he's impeached, he's tried, he's sent for trial to the Senate. You're exactly right. And,
Well, I think it would be on speed dial,
yes.
George. Speed dial. How fast can you make the printer work? Okay.
Right. Yes.
And,
No,
and Lindsey
I
Graham he'll have venom. I mean, it could give Lindsey Graham a heart attack. Okay. I mean,
right.
this could really hurt the guy. No, I mean, Josh Hawley, God bless his soul. He's one guy. JD Vance, God bless his soul. He's one guy.
Rand Paul also.
Rand Paul.
Yeah,
well, I think we hit the three.
exactly. All the rest, Mitt Romney, and then the Susan Collins, the woman in Alaska, they'll all be happy to to join in. Plus, you got all the leaders, Republican leaders in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, and the guy John Cornyn from Texas, and then the guy from South Dakota. They all hate Trump. They'll be happy to convict him.
Not only do they hate him, they're not even on speaking terms. Okay, I mean, my goodness.
Right.
I mean, and Trump is no fool. Okay, and he knows that doing something like that, maybe he would like to do it. Okay, but he knows that would be political death. George pointed out on our podcast here a long time ago when Trump was leaving office. We were all hoping that he would pardon Julian Assange, but George pointed out, said, no, that would be another articles of impeachment.
No question. And that was why that impeachment towards the last days of his administration was so devastating. That sealed the fate of Julian Assange, because Trump's margin was very narrow. I mean, remember, 57 senators voted to convict. 57. So he, just a few more, he lost a few more Republicans would have joined, and he'd have been done. So, and there's no question, Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, and a few others, if they would have voted to convict if he had pardoned Julian Assange. I mean, I have to say, a lot of people condemn Trump for not pardoning Assange, but it's one case where you have to have at least some sympathy for him. I mean, he was, at that moment, he was fighting for his life, and it is for his life, because once he's impeached and convicted, they all the criminal justice system is going to come after you. So, but you're absolutely right. That would be the consequence of his of removal, which would suggest that his best bet is if he's going to have a number two, is to have someone who's exactly his on the same wavelength on the wall, which would be somebody like Tulsi Gabbard. He wants to have her as a VP. I think she'd be very good, but I'm afraid that he might do something stupid like Tim Scott. If he names Tim Scott as his VP, then they're going to be salivating. They're going to get Trump out on day one.
Yeah, well, Tim Scott, he's come out. He's very pro-Ukraine, anti-Russia, and he would be very acceptable, because if Trump were to cross the establishment again on such a magnitude, he would be sitting pretty, because they would do exactly what they want to have in the Oval Office. But again, it's the interagency consensus. You can vote for somebody and you can vote for some ideas, but you get negative returns as we go through time. The likelihood of getting what you vote for is getting close to zero, if not negative returns. Okay.
It is fascinating, isn't it? I mean, the sheer meaninglessness of elections. I mean, you promise something, and then once you're in office, the interagency consensus, makes clear, and then, if you go against the interagency consensus, Trump might say, well, what do I, why should I listen to people who are not elected to anything? Well, and they've got the impeachment process, they get you out through impeachment. There's all sorts of mechanisms in place to ensure that, that policy prevails. America's now completely wedded to this. I mean, and it's a really interesting question. How did that come about? The deeper forces as to why the United States decided, and the West decided that they're going to make a stand in Ukraine. That all those years they managed to live with communism in Eastern Europe. They managed to live with the Soviet Union, sign all these arms control agreements, four power agreements, and so on. Now you're ready to go to the brink of World War because Ukraine has to be in NATO. It's a
Isn't
bit of
it
a
really
mystery.
interesting? Isn't it really interesting how Francis Fukuyama, when he wrote the End of History and the Last Man, which was a ridiculous book, basically, and he's very gently kind of moved away from it. Okay,
Right.
I mean, it was big. He made a lot of money off of it, and it's exactly what these elites wanted to hear. And so the author basically disavowed the thesis, but the readers, they took it on board, and it is the end of history. I can remember arguing with people like Michael McFaul, is saying, if democracy is the ultimate end destination for humanity, then why do you have to push it along? It's inevitable, right?
Exactly.
Now, why do you have to push it? Okay,
Right,
if there's an inevitability to it,
yeah.
why don't you just let it happen? Okay.
Yes.
But these people, this is what's rules-based order will prevail, but we're going to give it a little nudge.
Right.
Okay, but nudge here is like going to the abyss of the Third World War.
Yes. No, I think that's a very good point. I think Fukuyama, said liberal democracy. It can't just be democracy. I mean, in other words, it has to be liberal. So the democracy of Erdogan, that's unacceptable. The democracy of Viktor Orban, unacceptable. So you have to embrace
Even
contemporary
democracy in
liberalism.
Russia.
Democracy in Russia as well. Again, you have to embrace the contemporary liberalism. But then it becomes the interesting question is that if you decided that, oh yeah, we have to push it along, against whom? Against Putin. Now, Putin had been a part of this group. I mean, Putin had never really departed from the liberal consensus. I mean, he came to power. Boris Yeltsin was his patron, and he wanted to continue with essential integration with the West. I mean, this is, he didn't want to go in any on a separate path.
Yeah.
And I think even now, I mean, I feel that the Russians still want to keep open some sort of an, some hope that they can restore relations. I mean, like we were talking the other day, I'd like to see Angela Merkel indicted by a Russian court, but I just don't think it'll happen because I think Putin will probably feel, I liked Angela, I liked talking to her. I had a good time meeting with her.
It's very interesting. The German question pops its head up again. And I remember in the early days of RT, I used to do a lot of live coverage in the news studio. And every time there was something that had to do with Angela Merkel, with the Germans, we always put a lot of attention on because that was his favorite foreign policy, trade with Germany. Okay. And bend over backwards, all problems can be solved, and then watching that the blowing up the Nord Stream, that was probably a very low point in his presidency. Is that after everything they did to build up that relationship, it's been absolutely shattered. I mean, literally cut. Okay. But George is right. The whole German angle was at the very, very center of his foreign policy focus. And that's why Washington hated it.
Absolutely. But now what we have is that, let's say the war culminates, total defeat for Ukraine, complete victory for Russia. Then what's the West stance? The West stance, okay, we continue with this war against Russia. We continue with tightening our sanctions. We will continue, using every means at our disposal to hurt Russia in every forum that we have. And again, which the threats of bringing them to trial at The Hague, which means that they will get all these courts to issue secret indictments, which means Russians are going to have difficulties traveling anywhere. I mean, any Russian official would be bloody silly to go traveling anywhere, because if there could well be a secret indictment, then you could be arrested and hauled into there. And this is just going to be there in perpetuity. That's the West position. Okay, we'll just keep this war going.
I think like so many of us, when the special military operation started, we were thinking of the ramifications of it, not just the immediate military conflict, but how it will change the international system in geopolitics. And I bumped into a guy in a grocery store. It was like 2 or 3, 4 days into it. And I'd met him at Valdai. I think he was like a Danish guy or something like that. And I said, "Wow, what are you doing here?" And he said, "I just wanted to, come in and see what's going on and see what the atmosphere is like." And I said to him, "This is a generational thing. This is not going to be over it will not. I will not see it. I will not see the end of it, George.
No, I
This
don't
is
think so.
this is a world historic event going on, and because we're in the moment." When we look at, the increment, particularly people like George and I, the incremental moves that not by the day, even by the hour here. But, I used the word cosmic earlier, but it is kind of that way because everything has changed. I keep telling my people at work, whatever you think is normal, we're not going back to it. This is the new normal.
Yeah, no, that's very true. And I think that, what you said about Germany is very interesting because, this was at the heart of Putin's foreign policy. But at the same time, it's also a little naive because, yes, there have always been trends within Germany that favored good relations with Russia. There's always been countervailing trends, the deeply anti-Russian feelings within Germany. And now that seems to be completely predominant. And, if you watch Schultz ranting and raving the other day when he was being heckled, he went to the East and they were heckling him. He just went absolutely crazy with his denunciations of Putin. That's it. This is prevailed. Now, in the polls, you have the Alternative für Deutschland. They're doing quite well in the polls. They're 18%. They could soon be essentially the number 2 party in Germany, but no one's going to join a coalition with them. Unless the Alternative suddenly started getting 40%, which seems inconceivable, there's no way that they'll ever be in government.
That's what they did in Sweden. They did in the Netherlands. Okay, you just don't. You just have a minority government. They don't. The democratic will is rejected by the establishment. Okay,
exactly.
But the case of Germany is even more poignant because you're right. There were always countervailing trends, but there was a deep debate. Okay, it was real, and you could say, hey, this is our way to give us more independence, more choices in foreign policy. It's a win-win for in every sense. Okay, and you could make that argument 2 years ago. You could. Now you can't. It's foreboding.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And the blowing up of the Nord Stream pipelines, you can see how the German intelligence is now cooking up all these stories about, obviously Ukrainians. Oh yeah, Ukrainians.
It's so embarrassing.
It is so embarrassing, exactly, because they realize, there are Germans who are saying, so a great ally, the United States, blew up a pipeline. Our economy is suffering because of our great ally. There's something wrong here, shouldn't we maybe think about switching allies? So they want to end all talk like that. And essentially then they can blame everything on Ukraine without, of course, blaming Zelensky himself, because that means they might turn against Zelensky. No. It was Ukrainians, but it had nothing to do with Zelensky.
Oh, that's right. The Pope never he was unaware. The Pope never knew what was going on.
No, that's right. Exactly. Apparently, some intrepid Ukrainians, hey, let's go blow up the pipeline. Yeah, bloody good idea. Let's go do it. This extremely difficult, complicated operation. Just few guys and a girl, with a yacht, and then apparently you can just go blow up a pipeline and get away with it, just disappear into the ether. And
just the lack of sophistication. And what is so embarrassing that we're still investigating. We have a lead. Okay, we found some a bomb. What was it? Some kind of bomb footprint. From this. It's like, really. So these people are so sophisticated to be able to pull off the crime of all time. but they're sloppy, but they
Yes.
and they leave
I know, yeah.
evidence. How does that work?
Well, that's always that's always a problem with these whenever they're coming up with these conspiracies, is that on the one hand, you've got the crime of the century. On the other hand, they're the Keystone Cops, and they just sort of leave all these idiotic clues lying around. That always the problem.
Isn't it funny? You have these terrorist attacks, and then and we have Nord Stream, and people leave passports behind.
That's right.
Well, I mean, particularly for people, viewers outside of Europe and outside of Russia, is that you have to carry your documents with you. Okay, it's something you have to do. Okay,
right. Yeah.
And you don't just casually leave your documents on the table. I mean, people are paranoid about that,
Yeah, yeah.
And so you're always very protective of your documents. But these people are so sophisticated in blowing up a multi-billion-dollar infrastructure that they leave documents behind.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. But I mean, it was the same with Novichok, with what was the name of those two guys, Popov and Ivanov, or whatever the name of it. Yeah, they travel together. They book into a hotel, and then they party the night before. Then they go to Salisbury, make sure that they're photographed with all the closed circuit cameras, and then they kind of leave together. Again, you're pulling off a highly dangerous crime, an assassination, and you're just leaving clues all over the place.
And going into, I guess it was Heathrow, going through customs passport control, they look straight into the camera. They're like, almost like, hi. Yeah. These guys, I mean, they're so slick that they want us to believe that they're like Charlie Chaplin. Okay,
that's right. That's right. And again, the amazing thing is that the Skripals just vanished. No Skripals, and again, we have our media, which never seem to ask the government, hey, how come the Skripals have just disappeared? Wouldn't it be an idea to interview them, tell them so that we can ask them about their experiences and everything? No, you can't interview, you can't talk to them. You think, well, why not? I mean, even if you want to hide their location and everything, that can be arranged. It shouldn't be difficult to hide their location. No, that's it. You can't do it.
Yeah, and Novichok, how many people has it killed? I mean, it's for one of the worst, toxin.
The most deadly nerve agent known to man.
Not very effective. I mean,
yeah, that's right.
Why didn't they just go back with the old umbrella thing with the, remember that?
Right.
Okay.
No, exactly. The Markov, the Bulgarian. Yeah. But that's the thing. I mean, when assassinations, a lot of intelligence services have experience with assassinations, and they're quite effective. They know how to do these things. They don't go around partying the night before and looking into the cameras and everything else. I mean, Bandera was assassinated by the KGB. No one even knew about it until this guy confessed to having done it. They just everyone just assumed Bandera died of a heart attack. He didn't have a heart attack. They basically fired some prussic acid in his face. Prussic acid evaporates very quickly, and he was assumed that he died of a heart attack. So yeah, that's how you conduct assassinations. You don't leave any clues.
Yeah, because once they stopped accusing Russia of blowing up the pipeline, they were just left holding the bag.
It's a problem, because then they would say, well, it's the United States, and then boom, and particularly when the moment Hirsch published that story, suddenly all the intelligence services of the world went into action. Oh yeah, it was the Ukrainians. They looked around. Whom can we accuse? We can do it, Ukrainians, but without accusing Zelensky.
Remember, George, O.J. Simpson, who is still alive. He's looking for the
real killer. Yeah. I'm looking for the. That's right. No, they're going to be looking for and at various points, the media will come up. Hey, maybe it was the Russians. You'll always be running those stories.
Well, this is an attempt to this is an internal palace coup to undermine, blah blah blah. They'll do this. They love doing this. Okay,
that's right.
I mean, it's one of the things that just popped into my mind over the last few weeks is that it's interesting how old criminology is making a comeback. Have you noticed that?
Yes,
Is
we
that,
did this.
well,
Yeah,
this person seems to be close to Putin, and
yeah,
they have close, their dotches are close together, okay, and
yeah.
they wear the same watch, okay, and this kind
Right,
of
right,
really, I mean, it was pretty hokey during the Cold War,
right,
okay,
right.
but
But
now
I
this
agree.
is coming back in vogue.
But the Kremlinology is also in vogue when it comes to Washington. I mean, we look at the Washington. Basically, everyone in Washington is determined to go on fighting forever. But there are these stories that appear at various times suggesting, oh no, there's divisions within the Biden administration. There are people who want to work out a peace agreement, and there are those who don't. The hardliners and the softliners, and you never know who are in this hardline and softline group. So so there was some, William Burns, the CIA director, he tends to be in the softline group, and then at various times Blinken or someone, Newland, she's always among the hardliners, but they're always, and there's no evidence for any of that. I mean, it's all made up, just like there was never any evidence for all the Kremlinology stories about the hardliners and the softliners. It was just all made up by the journalists.
It's really interesting, and that brings in the outlet Politico, because they're the ones that seem to be at, maybe not at the center of it, but they love to pound away at it. Okay, the New York Times and the Washington Post will follow as well. But I just, thinking of our good friend Martin J. So many of these things just feel like they're fed, they're stenographers.
Absolutely.
They're just trying to. I mean, because one of the things that George and I do here almost every time we speak is, are they trying to pull the wool over our eyes? Because all of this here is to make you look in a certain direction. And what George and I try to do, why should we look in that direction? Okay, maybe we could be looking somewhere else. That's what a lot of this is. That's why, the fabled story counteroffensive, they make us talk about it and think about it, but is there going to be one? Okay, maybe, I don't know.
No, I think you're right, because what they're trying to do, particularly with the idea that there are people within the Biden administration who are, who want to negotiate an outcome, is it gives the impression, and they don't want to create the impression that that actually America is serious about peace. America, they really want to resolve this, and you don't want to reveal that essentially America just wants to go on fighting forever. No, you want to create this impression. No, there's a conflict within the administration. Again, we never know who are the players. And then when you run that story, along comes some Lindsey Graham type. So this is outrageous. This story in Politico suggests that there are people within the administration who are thinking about doing a deal with Putin. I'm going to hold a hearing. We need to hold a hearing on this. So they all play this little game. It's essentially kind of theater.
I tend to think that they're very much in lockstep. As a matter of fact, I think there's a competition to outdo each other more than anything else. If you're dissenting, particularly on this policy point, I think you would be asked to leave.
I think so too. Absolutely.
I don't see how. Burns is a weird situation, and they're the one that they like to use him a lot. I mean, and to give credit where credit's due, I mean, he knows a whole lot more about Russians than probably all the rest of them combined. Okay, but I don't know. I mean, and he's the CIA director, so I mean, he's not really the most.
He's not in policy, exactly.
In public.
That's right. So he's not involved in policy. But you're absolutely right, because if he dissented in such a fundamental way, that he's, that was saying, yeah, I think we should sit down and negotiate something with Putin, which is a fundamental disagreement policy, he would be out. I mean, there's just no way that you can just, let's chew the fat over at 5 o'clock this afternoon. I mean, that's just not what happens. They're all on board with this policy, which is, as we've discussed, I mean, it's just implacable. Let's just keep this going forever.
Yeah, and Burns has been around forever. Okay, right. And they could just say, after decades of service, and they can just kind of push him aside. Okay, he'll get his pension, and he'll be on corporate boards. I mean, don't worry about him. Okay,
right. That's right, exactly. So if you really believe that he could easily leave, and then write his memoirs or whatever, he hasn't done it. He knows what the policy of the administration is. He's on board with that policy. But they just keep these stories going, and it's a nice look. Americans, It's always, you know, it's a classic in America. Well, there are divisions, and then, you know, Americans, they really want to end this war. They're very serious about peace. They want negotiations. It's the way Americans want to think of themselves. You know, hey, we're basically good guys. You know, we're decent. You know, we want to resolve this. How can we resolve it? You know, but we just can't do it because Putin is so unreasonable. You know, we're doing our best, but Putin just won't allow us.
And one of the dangling threads that George and I have tried to grapple with, but never accepted, these leaks that came out of the last few weeks. I just don't know. Okay, I mean, if we can't read them, if I can't see the black and white, okay,
no,
you know, and for me, that's a psyop operation right there.
I absolutely agree. I mean, that was the difference between WikiLeaks, which always gave you the documents, and again, now we can see with the document and see what really is going on, as opposed to journalists who are being fed something, but we never get to see the actual original document. So basically they're being fed a story, and we're being fed a story. You know, they're pulling the wool over our eye. They want us to think something. And then you think, well, why do they want us to think this? And it's obvious. Well, yeah, that's what, you know, they want us to think that, you know, Americans, very decent guys, you know, like sort of America as the Jimmy Stewart character, you know, oh, shucks, you know, we're always being pushed into doing something we really don't want to do. And we just want to resolve this, you know, can't we all just get along? And so, yeah, total fraud. But it's a nice self-image. And that's what these stories are about.
Yep. Well, we'll see where it goes from there. But the John Mearsheimer, maybe you should put it in the description, the link.
Yeah, I'm going to do the link. Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
It's kind of deceptive, the title, because and that maybe that's what spiked your interest in it. That's right. Why I walked on that. Well, I can't see how in the world Trump can resolve this situation in 24 hours. Okay, but maybe that was the tease to get you to watch it. But
right.
No. I know the second person that was being Freddie. I don't know who that is. Okay.
Yeah, some guy from the Spectator who, for an Englishman, given that the British have become completely unhinged on the subject, was not unreasonable. I mean, he was, you know, he wasn't the completely demented English journalist that we've become used to over the last few years.
I have an idea. I haven't asked George in advance this, okay, but we should get maybe a couple of people on from the UK and talk about why the country is so Russia hate, Russophobic, okay? Right. Because the UK is a top drawer of that agenda here. I think I could, with my contacts, we can get some people to sit down with us and explain kind of the origins of it. I mean, I have my own ideas, but it's better to talk to people.
I think that's an excellent suggestion, because it's not quite the Britain that I remember. I mean, the Britain that I grew up in was nothing if not sort of phlegmatic and pragmatic. I mean, it's like, you know, you don't want to do anything crazy. You know, you just have to be realistic. This complete unhinged, crazy hatred for Russia is something new, and it is interesting. What is the origin of this? I mean, I know all the story about the 19th century imperialism, but that's a long time ago. I mean, why should this suddenly become so influential? It wasn't that influential in the 1950s, 60s, or 70s. So it's very interesting that why should it suddenly have flared up now?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of reasons for it, a lot of bad reasons for it.
Right.
I think Brexit plays a role in it. I mean, that in the U.S. and Britain still don't have a trade agreement.
I don't think so. No, I don't know.
So I mean, and this is what was predicted, that the UK would be much more tethered to the United States when it left the EU. But the secret sauce, everybody, is always that evil organization, NATO. Absolutely. Okay, that's what keeps it together. All right, and so it's very interesting to the point where it's just religious fervor, belief, and faith in NATO. It's just amazing. And they're having their conclave coming up in July in Vilnius. Okay, and so we'll be waiting for white smoke to be coming out of some kind of smokestack.
White smoke, because Zelensky says, unless you offer me something concrete, I'm not even going to show up. So they're going to, oh, we got to offer Zelensky. Zelensky has to show up, because in every class photo, Zelensky is always front and center, and everybody's around him. So we have to have Zelensky.
You're not going to kiss the ring. I'm not coming. Okay. It's amazing how they've created this guy out of whole cloth.
Exactly. That's right. Exactly.
I always want to remind people, anyone that will listen, this is a very different person that was running for president. Okay, I mean, he's been completely redone. I mean, completely. Okay, exactly. No resemblance to the person he was before. Okay, and he seems to like to play the role.
Oh, so. Yeah, that's right. Exactly. That's right. He's now this world figure, and they're all there, and they all look ridiculous. I mean, when G7, and there he is right in the middle, and then all these others. Scholz is somewhere way over in the distance.
A meeting in a train car with no ties. Wow.
Yeah, that's right. And he's always wearing that ridiculous fatigues. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it was one thing when Stalin would wear that sort of marshal's uniform. I mean, but at least there was a real war on. And but here, and but what the hell is Zelensky doing wearing these fatigues?
I have no idea, but it's. But people like it, Vanity Fair and all of this. It's all part of the package. Yeah. Okay. He's a war leader. Okay. Though, like I said during our recording earlier, is that I don't know if it's really important what future historians will think. I think we need to look at psychologists, what they think about how all of this happened, how we have these elite captures, this a cosmology that is made from whole cloth. George is absolutely right. We survived the Cold War. We survived it. Okay.
That's right. Yeah. I think exactly, and apparently we were able to live with it. Amazing. We were able to live. The Soviet Union. They invaded Czechoslovakia, and we're all able to live with it. Amazing. We kind of, 1968 came and went, and we all survived. No one said this is the end of human civilization. Whenever they say Putin prevails, that it shows that evil will triumph over good. I mean, with this, it's completely this nonsensical apocalyptic talk, and they get a free run for their money, because we're talking about the elite. The media is part of that elite. They're there as enablers, and never ask the questions that we try to ask. But that's it. Or Mearsheimer made the point. I'm this famous professor, and I barely get any mention in the media. So that's
well. I mean, before we wrap, John Mearsheimer, prior to 2003, did make it on cable wasn't so popular, but on the major news networks, he was invited, and he was asked. Okay, but because he said he in so many words, this Iraq war thing is a complete boondoggle. It's a catastrophe. It's going to end in catastrophe.
Right.
Boom.
That's right.
Gone.
Yeah.
So the most celebrated international relations theorist in the world,
right,
has been disappeared. He was disappeared before we said people were disappeared.
Yeah. That's it, and that's it, and that's why these people like Boris Johnson, who's now a regular visitor to the United States, he gets a free ride for his nonsense. I mean, because as long as Ukraine, and instead of saying, well, you're a complete failure, you messed everything up in Britain, you were kicked out by your own party,
you won an election, and then you were within months. You humiliated yourself.
Exactly. You're a total failure. But as long as I'm doing, Ukraine, and then he starts berating Trump and whatever, and that's it. He's kind of rehabilitated himself.
Well, Liz Truss is doing the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, her first phone call was to Kiev. Okay, and then she's in Taiwan. Bring it on, war.
Yeah. It's unspeakable. I mean, the idea that these total fiascos as politicians, and using Ukraine as the stepping stone for some kind of a rehabilitation.
Yeah, but that's how petty it is. Okay, right. Again, This is an elite agenda, okay? And they just, they may be interchangeable, as we've said so many times, but then if you have the right idea,
Right.
you can be rehabilitated no matter what you've done.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
extraordinary.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you know what, George? Let me see if I was thinking about this. They may at some point in time admit that they had made mistakes, but they will never agree that you and I were right. They will
No,
never go that far.
that's a very good point.
Never.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point, because it's very easy after the fact, and long time has elapsed and everything, say, yeah, well, maybe we got it wrong. But you don't suffer any consequences. And of course, Iraq is the best example of that. All the advocates of the war, they're all doing nicely. They've all got their little gigs on Fox News or CNN or MSNBC. They're all making a lot of money. Those who are against the war, they're not being no rewards there. And so that's always the way, because after a time, there's no shame in, no consequences of saying, yeah,
Mistakes
maybe I
were
got it
made.
wrong. Yeah.
Mistakes were made.
Mistakes were made. Exactly. Always use the
But
passive
they'll
voice.
never admit that we were right.
No,
They'll
no,
never go that way.
No.
Go there ever.
Exactly. Yeah.
And when people berate me, I say, so they were wrong about Iraq. So what gives you confidence that they're right about this one?
Exactly.
Please explain that. It's
exactly.
the same people,
It's the same people.
essentially.
That's right. That's exactly that. It really is that same people, literally same people. And then we're supposed to rely on your judgment when you got everything wrong. By your own admission, you got everything wrong. But now we're supposed to trust. Oh yeah, we've got this one right. But that's it.
Oh, and look. Juan Guaido goes back to Miami with his tail between his legs. Did anyone say, "Oh, I think we got that one wrong"? Did anyone? No one.
No one. You're right. Exactly.
I mean, can you at least give them their gold back? I mean, a token thing, okay?
No, you don't get your gold back. It's like, it's like with the Julian Assange. One thing after another just keeps falling, aside. All the charges from Sweden, and then they changed the extradition law because under which they made the application, because the British realized this law is absolutely nuts. They changed that, and still, can you bloody well release him now? Nope. We continue.
Everybody, just wrap this around your head. They changed the law to go after one specific individual.
No.
That is authoritarianism. That's weaponization, politicization of the law to go after one man. Right. They're doing it to Trump.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly.
All right, everybody. That's our wrap for the week. Our Sunday wrap. We live in very, very interesting, perilous times because, as George and I have laid out here, it's a cosmic collision going on here. And George John Mearsheimer, take a look at that video because he's absolutely right. There is no solution to this.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right.
All right, everybody. This is Peter and George. We're the Gaggle. We're on Local, so please go to thegaggle.locals.com, visit our store. And since today is Sunday, George and I will reconvene tomorrow, but he'll have his first live stream on Tuesday.
Exactly. Tuesday, 3 p.m. Eastern time. Please join me. Come with comments, criticisms, and suggestions. And on the way out the door to the local watering hole, think about little buddy, because little buddy is always saying, yeah, what about me? I was right all along. And yet no one seems to acknowledge it. I was right.
Perfect track record.
Exactly. I was right about the tip jar, and yet I did get no rewards for being right. So because his arguments are absolutely irreproachable. Please, if you have a few bob in your pocket, whip them out, dunk them in his tip jar, because we're getting very tired of arguing with him because we're always losing. So we're very grateful for all of your help and friendship and support. The more you're able to donate, the more of these videos we can make, the more we can improve the technology. And above all, you know, we can at least avoid these arguments with Buddy. So remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.